Welcome to Pixel Play Ventures Clubhouse Room. Today's session will begin shortly. Thank you.
Okay, it's all ready. Yasin, are you ready?
No, we are not. Encik Naim is not in.
Yes, I'm ready. Tunggu Encik Naim.
So you're still waiting for Encik Naim, eh?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Pixel Play Ventures Clubhouse Room. Today's session will begin shortly. Thank you.
Okay, Yasin. We're gonna go live in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Pixel Play Ventures Clubhouse Room. For your information, this session is also streamed live on Pixel Play Ventures YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, today's topic is titled Startup Struggles and How Do We Grow Faster? Our moderator for today is Sharul Niza Yahya, whom is also the Chief of Operations for Pixel Play Ventures. Sharul, the Clubhouse is all yours now.
Thank you so much, Yasin. Assalamualaikum and a very good evening to all. We are back again in Pixel Play Ventures weekly Clubhouse session. Just to recap, PPV, Pixel Play Ventures, and Magic is now running Global Market Fit Program USA, where 10 eligible Malaysian startups were selected to participate in a 9-week accelerator program, focusing in expanding business in the United States. Each week, we will feature 2 startups from GMP USA Cohort 1 in our Clubhouse session to share their entrepreneurship journey with us. However, Founder Stories series will take a break this week, and we shall continue with our final 2 startups from GMP USA Cohort 1 next week. Tonight, we have representatives from relevant Malaysian government agencies with us. We are going to discuss the topic, startup struggles and how do we grow faster. My name is Shahrul. Welcome again to those who have just joined us in Clubhouse. And for your information, this Clubhouse session is also streamed live in Pixel Ventures YouTube page. Therefore, for those who are not familiar with Clubhouse or by any means unable to join chatting with us tonight, you can also view live stream in PPV's YouTube channel. Do not forget to subscribe as well and like our videos for support. Yeah, thank you so much. And while waiting for our Clubhouse room to be populated, a little background about who we are. Pixel Play Ventures, in short PPV, we are a venture capital management corporation, or generally known as a VC, registered with Securities Commission of Malaysia. PPV focuses on investing in rapidly growing mid to late stage companies that fit PPV's ethical venture build philosophy, which is designed for the ethical conscious investors as well as founders. And together with our partners, I would say together with our partner from the state, US Market Access Center from Silicon Valley, we are now running a 9-week accelerator program for 10 companies, Malaysian companies, to have access to specifically the United States and global markets. In short, preparing them to expand the Silicon Valley way. Okay, let's go. Again, thank you to those friends and audience who are with us tonight in Clubhouse. And hello to those watching this live stream via YouTube. Some logistics to those in Clubhouse. Hope you enjoy listening to the session tonight and feel free to participate by pressing the palm icon at the bottom of your Clubhouse screen. Our moderator will promote you to speak and interact with our panelists. Whatever it may be, questions, queries, or even sharing your personal thoughts, very much welcomed. And those who are watching via Pixel Play Ventures YouTube channel, again, do not forget to subscribe and like our videos. Thank you for your support. You may also key in your remarks or questions in the comments section. Our moderator will pick them up and convey to our fellow panelists. Moving on. Together with us tonight, we have MATRADE, being represented by Encik Naim Rahman, Director of ENE, ICT, and MNE section. In YouTube live streaming, he is in the middle of the top row. And on his left, from Magic, we have Ms. Karsin Ng, Manager, International Partnership and Outreach. And on Encik Naim's right, Jasrina Arshad, founder of PurelyB, Asia's #1 health and wellness digital lifestyle brand and community platform. PurelyB is also part of GMP USA Cohort 1. Not forgetting my PPV partner, Encik Amiruddin Aziz, Abang Amir, is also present here tonight. A very good evening to you all, Encik Naim, Karsin, Jasrina, and Abang Amir. Hope you are doing well, dinner taken, and ready to chat. Thank you for being with us on a Saturday evening. Assalamualaikum again to my fellow friends here.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Mr. Shahrul, for the introduction.
All right.
Good evening.
Without further ado, let's start the evening with Jasrina. On the topic, startup struggles And how do we grow faster? Jess,
Yes.
running your own startup for the past 6 years, I'm sure you have had many struggles and pain points. However, can you point out one thing that disturbs you the most? Only one, yeah? The biggest struggle that you have had. Share with us.
Yeah. Um, I would have to say the biggest challenge that we faced was finding the right business model and monetization model that will enable us to be a sustainable business at scale while staying true to our vision and our mission of wanting to improve people's health and their lives. It took us 4 years to get there, to find that sweet spot where where we have a solution that people are willing to pay for. We had solutions that people wanted, but may not necessarily pay for before that. And this is what would they pay for at a premium price, where we can get a high repeat customer rate, low customer acquisition cost, high marketing ROI of 4 to 5 times, and fill a gap in the market. And our vision and our mission has not changed from where we were at day one. What changed was, how do we get there? How do we fulfill that and be a sustainable business with the right solution for a monetization channel? So that what has changed, but the foundation of why we built the company never changed. So finding that took 4 years. And ensuring the challenging part was making sure that you had the financial runway to withstand that, the many, many pivots of getting there. So to me, that one challenge had multiple challenges layered on top of that. The funding challenges to ensure that you had the financial runway to figure all that out and to be able to scale. And the other challenge was to maintain team morale whilst you're constantly pivoting, because whatever they spent months building, all that effort, you get all these customer insights saying that actually we should be doing this instead, and then they have to suddenly pivot and then work towards something else. It can affect the team. So how do you keep them encouraged and maintain those values and the culture? So all of that was down to the fact that the monetization channel really was the core challenge that affected everything else.
Okay, thank you so much for that. If I may just interject and stop you there. Thanks,
Sure.
Jess. It took you 4 years to find the right
Yeah.
business model,
Yeah.
while staying true to your vision and mission. And subsequently, you still have to manage the team morale when you guys pivoted. I would move on to Karsin. Karsin, in Magic, we have seen a lot of startup, life cycle. As what Jasrina has shared earlier, it took her 4 years, PurelyB, to find the right business model. And that seemed to be the biggest challenge, the biggest struggle that she has ever faced. From your perspective, from Magic perspective, Karsin, do you find this like a norm in our Malaysian startups?
Yeah, definitely is a norm. In our statistics alone, the failure of startups is actually as high as 97%. So it's very common for you to be in the same be one of the number that contribute to that. But however, with Magic coming into the scene and play, that's the reason why we have all this education or accelerators incubation program, which there is some structure framework that we borrow and learn from the Silicon Valley, trying to decrease the failure rate for you guys. Hence, not sure whether Rina, you have participated any of the
Yes.
accelerator program?
Yeah. So I think it was a Magic E at Stanford. That helped us a lot. I mean, it still took us 4 years, but we could have shut down as a company within the first year, for example, if we didn't go through that program. So that was actually a 2-week course. And we learned everything from marketing to financial modeling to valuation from the Stanford professors. And I actually trimmed my business, like all the features, everything we want. We tried to do too much. So we trimmed it down, learned how to raise funding, and that's how we got our first funding as well, and led to the first monetization channel, which we learned from. But it was a big, big help. Like I would recommend that program to everybody.
Yeah, most probably if you participated in ES Stanford, maybe in the first year of your startups, you would have saved another 3 years of bumping yourself, right? So that's the reason why we are promoting those program from Magic outside here.
I want to divert attention to Encik Naim. Encik Naim, listening to both Jazz as well as clarification being done by Karasin, from MATRADE's perspective, for traditional businesses, not startup based, yeah, uh, do they face similar challenges that what the startup, face in terms of what was explained earlier?
All right. Of course, definitely, all companies, be it startups, micro, small, and mediums, even mid-tier, as well as large companies, they definitely they go through this so-called cycle, and then of course at the beginning, definitely they face these challenges. But of course, it depends on the company itself. Sometime maybe a startup may take longer time to settle down and identify their so-called value proposition or their business model. But I think the common duration taken by SME, mostly they may take easily 2 years to settle down and get the right business model in expanding their business or getting into the international
So
trade.
you are saying for traditional
Uh,
businesses, it will take about 2 years for them to settle down with
two
a
years,
solid
yeah,
business plan.
2 years, yeah,
But I
that's
mean,
right.
there's a live scenario here. For example, PurelyB, she had to go through 4 years before finding
Yeah.
the right solution for a good, solid business plan. I'm not too sure whether this is in view with the nature of PurelyB being a startup as compared to traditional businesses. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
possible. That's possible. Maybe because purely be, I mean, is a startup. I mean, her journey start as a startup. Then I mean, not as a SME, for example. And then let's say as SME, definitely those that would like to venture into export market,
Mm-hmm.
I would say they have obtained certain level of readiness to get into the international trade, and then it won't take them that long. I mean, as what Purely B has gone through, I think from our experience and our observation, we could see that SMEs that are already quite ready to go for export market will take them, I mean, around 2 years to be able to settle down and get the right business model.
Hi,
Thank you. Yeah.
thank you, Naeem.
Sorry.
Cheryl, can I comment on that?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think the difference is that, for example, PurelyB, when we started, we weren't creating products to export or anything like. I mean, we're doing that now, but that was never the intention of what I want to do. Is for me, it was like, in Asia, there is no brand or platform or solution helping to guide people to lead sustainable, healthy lifestyles when they come from Asia with the Asian cultures. I need to create an educational platform and build an ecosystem that can provide the guidance and help motivate people to want to live healthier lifestyles. Like, it was much bigger than I want to sell them a product. And I think I do think every now and then I think back, I wish that I did products back then, 6 years. I wish I should have discovered 6 years ago, for all the money that I raised, what I could have done with it if I had this. But I also realized there's no way we could have achieved what we've achieved with this product with very little marketing and getting that kind of traction, that kind of response, if we didn't build the brand the way that we did and build such a strong community in the first 4 years. So we ended up building something unique in that sense, that brands who do have a product to sell want to work with us and want to be on our platform because of it. So I think that's the difference. Like, if you know you already created a product that you want to sell and export, I think that's very different than you coming in with a different vision, and it's not something so tangible in a sense, and then figuring out how to monetize that. So I think that is what, and not monetize just monetizing. Like, if we had a lot of money, we could have stuck to the first monetization channel, which is marketplace. It just takes a lot of of funding to run a marketplace, like you've seen a Lazada and all that. But we realized it wasn't true to what our customers really needed, like what was the gap in the market. So we needed to pivot away from that, and we didn't have the financial backing to also run a marketplace. So it's a few factors. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Right. Thanks, Jess. I mean, those are your
All right.
things
Yeah.
from
If I can
maybe.
respond to what Jasrina just mentioned, yeah, it is true. I mean, every company may have their own journey to settle down. Then, of course, it took you 4 years to do that. But I think from our observation, the earliest that an SME can do to get into export market, even though to get into an export market it might be a foreign market to them, but I think 2 years is a reasonable time for them to settle down and get their products marketed into a foreign market. So that's from our experience and from our observation. But of course, 4 years is your journey. But there's nothing wrong with for you to take longer than I would say a normal SME. But I think you have obtained good experience
Oh, absolutely,
from
yeah.
doing it
I
because
no regrets. Like to
you
me,
have
we needed to go
developed
through
your
that. Yeah.
yeah, because when you get into export market, no one knows about your brand, your
Yeah,
trademark.
exactly.
So definitely, it will take a longer time for you. But if you, I mean, can prepare earlier, then definitely, with help from us from MATRADE, then you can shorten your learning
Yeah,
curve.
yeah.
Then I think 2 years will be sufficient.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I agree. That's why I
All right.
think like if we did products to begin with, I totally agree. 2 years, like less than that even. But if you didn't come in with a mindset of I'm going to do products to export as a SME, and it was a very different, then it will vary for everyone. But I completely agree. There's nothing wrong with 4 years. Some people take 7 years. Some people don't even survive before they get there. I think it's just more essential of like what did you learn in those 4 years that makes your business even stronger as a result, that has a higher barrier to entry for your competitors.
Point taken, both Jasrina and Cik Naim. I do wanted to extend more, but give me a minute. Welcome everybody, and thank you for those who have just joined Clubhouse. I can see the room is getting populated. We are at Peaceable Ventures weekly Clubhouse session, and the topic for tonight is startup struggles and how do we grow faster. Together with us, we have Cik Naim from MATRADE, Karasin from Magic, as well as fellow startups highlighting their views on this interesting topic. Also, a reminder to listeners at Clubhouse, please do not be shy. This is a very much open platform for you to speak up. Should you have any remarks to share, questions, or you'd like to share your experience, just press on the palm icon at the bottom of your screen. Our moderators will then put you up as a speaker. And those watching on our YouTube live stream, feel free to drop your remarks and question in the comment section. We will pick it up accordingly. All right, Encik Naim, Jasrina, Kasim, Abang Amir, what I'm listening now, to generalize, what I'm hearing, startup is more independent and highly likely traditional businesses needs to be babysitted. So Karasin coming from Magic, you're involved with startup all the time. And Naim, you're pretty much privy with the traditional businesses, brick and mortar companies. And you were saying that typical business plan can be solidified within 2 to 3 years max. But somehow I'm not saying PurelyB, Jasrina is talking on behalf or speaking on behalf of the startups in Malaysia or even worldwide, but I guess startups are more independent. Uh, is that the case that traditional businesses, especially in Malaysia, being babysitted by government agencies, hence why they are able to do things faster? Karasin
Are
and
you
Naim, whoever wants to go
are,
first?
are you asking me the
I'm
question? All
asking.
right.
Yeah, you ask.
No. I think I'm not. I'm not supposed to be biased here. I mean, being a government official or government servant, but I have seen. I mean, how other countries, the way they develop their SMEs, or I would say their private sector. Definitely, the approach taken by other countries are different from ours. But I think Malaysian companies are fortunate because our government has been providing a lot of assistances and supports to all Malaysian companies, be them are micros or startups, or small and medium-sized companies, even if they are already mid-tier and large corporations. So basically, supports and assistances given by the government, I would say, are quite comprehensive and inclusive. When I say inclusive, that means that it is meant for everyone, every companies in every state in Malaysia, including Sabah and Sarawak,
Mm-hmm.
in East Malaysia, as well as those in the peninsula of Malaysia. So basically, I would say Malaysian companies are very fortunate because yes, government support is important, and then with the government support, then our companies can develop further or maybe better than their peers in the region, for example. But of course, again, I mean, in among the government supports and assistances that we have been providing to all Malaysian companies, definitely we have this approach whereby we try to nurture the Malaysian companies to understand that they need to graduate by the time they get in on board of the program. Let's say a startup company, they have been nurtured by Magic, for example, at the start, but they cannot be there forever. After a few years in the program, then they have to graduate. They have, I mean, if let's say now they are a startup, but I think after 3 years or after 4 years, like PurelyB, they can become a small and medium-sized company, and then maybe more than that, they can become an exporter. Then by the time they can become an exporter, then definitely they can come to MATRADE, and then we will bring them further, and then to the world, so that it can become mid-tier and then they can become a large corporation. So there's the journey that a company will go through. So definitely, I think again, Malaysian companies are fortunate. They have been getting assistance from various government agencies at all levels, at all
Cool.
levels.
Yep. All right.
And then yeah, that's my comment.
It is interesting, and I mean, no doubt, I think Malaysian government has been very supportive in terms of championing our local businesses. In terms of locally as well as expanding globally. And you were rightfully to say support from government is inclusive. However, this for discussion per se, there's no right or wrong answer. My fellow friends in Clubhouse, if you have a different view, please don't be shy. Press on the palm icon at the bottom of your screen. We'll let you speak. Not speak your heart out, but use your pretty much constructive comment if you have any. Coming back to
Yeah.
our topic earlier,
Mhm.
Abang Amir, coming from a VC perspective, it was just an example from Jasmina. PurelyB took 4 years to solidify her
Yeah.
business plan. And from VC view, I don't think that is a good thing. But in the context of being a Malaysian company, that for traditional businesses, Malaysian government has been pretty much supportive. Uh, the average number of years should take no more than 2 or 3 years max,
Yeah.
to have a solid business plan and move on from there. So, what say you? To be
Okay.
contradicting, 2 to 4 is 2 years of gap.
I guess.
Sorry, before you answer that, can I just clarify something? It didn't take us 4 years to have a solid business plan. We
All right.
actually launched the business plan. We had the plan already when we raised our seed funding when we were 6 months old. So we just pivoted the business model 3-4 times, which is very normal in the startup industry, as you guys know as venture capitalists. I don't think you can name a single startup that started out with one business model, and 10 years later they had the same business model, and that was what made them succeed. Even YouTube didn't start with what it ended up becoming. So I think that's very unfair to put the startup, say, well, if it took you 3 years to fine-tune your business model, then that's not okay. Like, it should take less than 2 years. Then you would eliminate majority of the startups. So I think just to clarify that, it's not about we didn't have a business model for 4 years. We pivoted it and found the sweetest spot that could get us the lowest CAC, highest ROI, highest repeat customers, and be a sustainable business at scale 4 years later.
Yeah, I think I understand what Jasuna is saying, and I think everybody has a story to tell, whether they're startup or SMEs. I've been involved in SMEs before my VC world. In fact, when I first started, I was a banker, a development banker as well, primarily looking at SMEs. I think what Cik Naim has mentioned is about the SMEs. They have a different support system, right? Back then, there were only SMEs. Startups are very few. Back then, meaning to say, in the late 80s, when I was a banker, the system was quite different. In fact, there was minimal startup. You have traditional businesses which had to grow from SMEs, and then they start growing and developing themselves. They had the banking system supporting them, else they will not be doing the business. I remember just now, one key point just now mentioned was the financial runaway she had to deal with. Can you imagine if there's no money? I think she would be having issues as well. So in the SME world, there are more banks who are ready to fund. They even had, even those days, various banks which does solely support the SME ecosystem at that time. All right, and at a later stage, they even have the Bumiputera development programs, not only by the banks but also by agencies like Mara, and later those turn out to be evolved into different types of agencies. So I think the point I'm making is the system is different from each category. So yes, I don't think we can compare them to the same. All right, and the reason why startups and only VCs just came in about hardly 15 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, in this country, right?
Around that.
Yeah, and I think the VCs came about because they wanted to support the startup economy, because bank will not be funding them, all right? And I do back then, but even today, I'm seeing VCs are looking at providing equity funding rather than debt funding. So back, because you go to the banks, you utang, you take loans, right, and which you have to pay back, and there are certain other restrictions, which the bank will want to make sure, because they say the credit risks they have to manage and maintain. But with VCs, well, the ideal VC, if they invest in equity, they're going to be a part shareholder. They're taking the same risk, by right? By right. So I think it's a different support system that we are looking at. So to be fair, these are two separate ones, right?
Yeah,
But
maybe I can also top up.
yeah, please. But the pain points, I will say, is very similar. All of them will have issues with finance. All of them will have issues with going into right markets, doing the business planning, the business plans. They're all the same. Okay? It's just how they do it, and how they
Mm.
right. But agencies, I'm talking as if I'm magic now. I hope I'm right. Agencies like Magic are actually helping out from another perspective, right? We know you want to do businesses, you need to have certain things, right? So when you have a startup, you can only survive. Very few will survive without having all this criteria, or what do you call that? Skill sets and what have you. So agencies like Magic and even others are trying to piece the pieces for them. And in fact, the idea is to make it easier for startups to get into the game faster, right? So that's why we were looking at creating accelerators, creating programs to go for new market access, all right, and creating the network which would help startups grow faster. So I think that is, in a sense, trying to help the industry for the startups. Um,
But
and
Abami, however, we know the nature of a startup is very much robust. Startup has a very lean organization, and just when I was trying to point out that in a startup you change business model, almost every single day, depending on what you do, which is normal. Which is normal. This is how startup works. This
yeah,
is how they do things, which is pretty much very much different from traditional businesses.
yeah,
So this is where the point being of how, normally this is how startup grow, right? All of us seen this, but not in the traditional businesses. So in terms of the support, coming back again into a much holistic and a very inclusive government agencies, it can be MATRADE, it can be Magic, or any other agency for that matter. What are the additional element that perhaps the Malaysian government agencies can inculcate in the development of the startup ecosystem in Malaysia? So apart from being robust, apart from being independent, which would help them to grow even faster and better. The
you're
good
asking
things.
me. You're asking me.
That's the point that actually, yeah, I'm asking, and
Okay.
I'm actually requesting for feedback. If you have
Okay, I
more
have a
input.
view. I have a view that the government has done a lot, right? But whether it is enough, that's it will depend. It will depend on how things are being done. I'll give you an example. Some trade missions, when they go overseas, you get government agencies who will represent certain industries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and when they go, they will bring in the what do you call that, the businesses with them in order to introduce, right, to wherever they're going. And the question is, when they go there, all right, what transpired during all these things, is it sufficient or not? Just take for example where you went, just you went to Dubai recently,
Fine.
right? It was a government it was a government sponsored and structured program. You attended an
Correct.
international, what do you call that? It wasn't a conference. It was like
It
a
was like a expo.
marketplace, expo.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Okay. Now, if you just go there and, what do you call that? Just exhibit your products, is that sufficient? But I do know some countries like Singapore, for example, they'll do a lot in order to attract the right people to come to our pavilions, or their pavilions, or rather. In fact, when you hear some of them speak, sounds like they are selling the products for you. I have seen that, right? And I've seen that in not only for products, even in services, all right? And when you hear them talk, you don't see them as a government agency talking. You see them talking, trying to bring their fellow countrymen to the next country and selling them. So that's the question I ask: are we doing the same thing or not? I only have one a regret story, if I can tell you this, but this was ages ago.
Sure.
But it's not a business. It's actually, at that time I was with a company that was doing customs. We call it, what do you call that? E-trade arrangement, right? So the system was to help ease electronic trade between countries. Okay, and there were few participants, because one country only has brought one or two. Okay, so it's very few. And when you hear people like, what do you call that, Singapore, they send relatively very senior government officials from the customs department. All right. Not only they will take them to that so-called expo, whatever you have, they are the ones who will arrange meetings with their counterparts. At that time, I was in Japan. Well, we went to Japan. They fixed the meetings with the Japanese counterparts, with the Japanese customs, bringing the, what do you call that, the Singapore businesses to those customs, and they will, to the Japanese customs, and they will actually present for this country, for these companies. So what I'm saying is the government agencies that I saw in Singapore that was doing this, they were literally doing businesses for the country. So it's a different approach. They get more involved, and they're doing more than most other countries were doing. Malaysia was one of those. And when I say regret, that particular situation, the Malaysian customs sent a very junior person, right? And in fact, when he spoke at his panel session, he didn't say much about Malaysian success. Right? His presentation was very bookish or academic, and it didn't help the business, I think. So that was like a couple of years ago, not couple. Sorry,
But
hey, I left. I
if
left
you agree with that,
2000.
I mean, all of us notice that currently most Malaysian or many of the Malaysian government agencies are going into supporting the startup ecosystem. MATRADE, for example, now has been playing a more active role in terms of
Yeah.
supporting the development of the startup community in Malaysia. This is where perhaps Chair Naim, you might want to deliberate further on the holistic approach, the support structure that you guys, from the typical traditional businesses point of view, are putting into the development of the ecosystem or the not so mature startup community here in Malaysia.
All right. Thank you for the question, Cik Shahrul. Basically, MATRADE, as the National Trade Promotion Agency of the Government of Malaysia, has been promoting all types of Malaysian companies. Not necessarily they are just small and medium-sized companies or startups, um, or mid-tier or large corporations. I have seen from my experience, small and medium-sized companies or exporter, after I mean they they gone through a journey with MATRADE, let's say for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
then they are now become a mid-tier company or a large corporation. So yes, maybe you can say we are now getting involved more in startups, but basically that's not the case. We have been doing we have been providing assistance to all companies, be them a startup or a small and medium-sized companies, as long as they are capable, and then they have competencies, and then they have certain level of readiness to compete into the international market, then definitely MATRADE is always ready to help them. You know, definitely. But I think let us be fair. To look at from the other perspective, from the private sector's shoes, because if a government agency like MATRADE, for example, is responsible to bring and help the Malaysian companies to venture into the international trade or international markets. But by the time we bring them, they, let's say they take it easy on the process, and then they do not take things seriously, and they are not coming in prepared, as what Cik Amir commented earlier. This doesn't happen on um, government officers alone. If the private sector doesn't do their part as well to get ready whenever they are with us participating in a international trade exhibition or trade mission, definitely they will lose the opportunity. And what more, when by the time they go outside Malaysia, they are subject to competition with more people. They are already competing at home with fellow Malaysian companies, but outside there, definitely they need to compete with foreigners, and then in foreign turf, in foreign land. So definitely readiness, getting prepared is also required. I mean, on the part of the Malaysian companies as well. So I believe um, MATRADE has the experience, and we are mandated by the government to help Malaysian companies to venture abroad. We have, our global network of 46 offices all over the world. Malaysian companies, be them again a startup or small and medium-sized companies or mid-tier companies or even large corporations. From my experience, myself, I've been helping, Malaysian companies, uh, not only startups or small and medium-sized companies, mid-tier, even large corporations. Why? Why I say so? Because anyone, let's say they get help from us, from our, let's say by the time they visit a foreign market, and then we have an office in that foreign market, definitely they can learn something from our officers stationed in that foreign market. And then learning something, it's not just learning a simple thing, it's learning about doing business there, getting market intelligence on how you can compete competitively or effectively with others, which is very critical to your businesses. So I think we are able to provide this information and this so-called intelligence to Malaysian companies. By the time they get these insights or market insights or intelligence from us, what they can do? They can be more prepared, and then they can become more, I would say, competitive exporter and more resilient exporter or more resilient company. That's what I mean. Definitely a startup, they don't want to become a startup forever. Definitely they need to uh, graduate. Like, I don't know, like again, Miss Jasrina, I'm sorry. Let me use your company as an example. It took you 4 years, to solidify your so-called your business. But I think now it is time for you to look at or venture into a bigger market. Definitely global market is definitely your target. you know
It is,
so that's what I
Chennai,
mean.
interesting to,
Startup, it cannot be just a startup forever. Yeah,
true,
they,
yeah.
they
I mean,
have
on the
to.
Actually,
positive note,
yeah.
okay,
Actually,
on
They
the
have
yeah,
to
positive note,
graduate. Yeah.
now, sorry,
yeah.
on the positive note, now we know that, it's good to hear that market at the very least is not differentiating startup compared to other businesses, private sectors, corporation. So they are being treated the same, which is good. And looking at PurelyB, for example, I'm very sure the Pegaga business, she should be looking, Jess, you'll be looking into exporting for the near future, right? Definitely you'll be needing support from agencies such as MATRADE from
Oh
Malaysia.
yeah, for sure.
For sure.
We've only started doing products 2 years ago, but Naeem, to your point about global, actually when we launched, we were already global. Like we already gained an international following and brand, which is why I'm saying when we launch our product 4 years later, I'm so glad we went through that journey, because unlike SMEs or businesses that just start out, say, okay, I got a product, now I want to export, blah, blah, blah. We already had the following and international customers buying our product without us even having to market to them, even having active presence in those markets or spending any marketing dollars. And we're getting US customers and customers in France and so on. So that to me was like the benefit of being a tech startup to begin with. Then we evolved into also doing physical products. But physical products is so new to us because we started in digital. So this became like, okay, we need a lot of assistance from the government and so on, because now we're trying to go into export, which is so different to what we started out. And I come from a digital marketing, digital media content background, not in the trade industry. So working MATRADE
No,
for sure is beneficial. Sorry?
no. But you cannot undermine the experience of those in the brick and
Oh
mortar
no, of
business.
course not. It's just very different.
Let's say you
Yeah.
use a technology and you are in digital platform. Definitely, I would say brick and mortar businesses, they also need to embrace the digital platform.
Oh yeah,
And
they
then
do. It goes both ways. Like,
but I
yeah.
think what I'm trying to say here, Malaysian companies have to do their part. They cannot just stick to so-called their existing condition. If you are in a brick and mortar business, but you continue in that segment, without embracing or just ignoring, the potential in the digitalization, for example, or leverage on the digital technologies, for example. Definitely you will be left behind.
Oh
And
yeah,
that you are
for
not
sure.
able to outreach into niche markets. We have success stories in our e-trade program, for example. Those on board of our e-trade program, they are able to market their products into markets that are unknown to Malaysia. Even though we know, from our trade statistics, we can see that we have been exporting to these markets, but I would say the trade amount, the trade value is not so significant. But we have e-trade. Those companies in our e-trade program that have been able to export into these so-called exotic markets. I would say unfamiliar terrain to Malaysian companies.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's why um, those who have been using digital platforms, definitely their outreach is wider and a lot wider than those in brick and mortar.
yeah, yeah.
I also
I
would like
agree.
to comment on I would also like to comment on Abang Amir's point of view just now. In the perspective of Magic, we actually does bring delegation, startups to different expo, like Singapore is doing. However, if you're asking us to be doing business matching in a foreign land or foreign market, to be very honest, we don't have the connection at the time where we bring the startups going to the expo. That that is actually one of the downside of we realize that having those expo externally without getting you guys the startups connected, it make no sense because we from Malaysia doesn't know any connection in that new market, right? Therefore, we that's the reason why we improvise instead of we realize bringing startups to the expo doesn't really yield a lot of results. There isn't much outcome coming from there. Just more of advertising of the Malaysian startups. That's it. Um, However, that's the reason why we improvise and come up with the global market fit program, where we actually go into those new market instead of helping the startups to get connection there. We partners with the ecosystem locally to leverage that connection to give the potential connection to the startups this way. I hope that it's something we are doing different from just bringing the startups going to different expos. Yeah, we still do that to take care of the relationship between countries, but to be very honest, it's very low in terms of result. We don't see a lot of result coming from there. Hence, we are having this GMP program. And I would also want to echo what Encik Naim has mentioned. I think the Malaysian startups are really very lucky in the sense that all the government agencies and ministries are giving different kind of support to them, especially on the funding side, right? Crader has been giving out money for the past 10 years to different early stage, pre-seed and also pre-seed and seed stage, right? But if you imagine, because just now Abang Amir also mentioned about system, so I think if you look at the entire global, US is actually having a different kind of startups ecosystem, right? They rely a lot on the private sector, not so much of government supporting that ecosystem. So if you imagine Malaysia, if you remove Magic and MATRADE, can we be still as sustainable and as flourish like Silicon Valley? So this is a point most probably startups will need to ponder about. That's the reason why me and Encik Naim think that startup in Malaysia is really very lucky.
Interesting point. Thank you, Kasim. Thank you, Encik, for the input. I believe it's just a matter of setting the different expectation by the startup, from the government, because startups has always been independent, like I mentioned earlier, pretty much a very lean organization, and they do things very fast. As opposed to rightfully Encik Naim mentioned, in the government, things are more structured. There's certain requirements that you need to fill up, but most of the time startups can't wait, and they need to run. They don't crawl and walk, they run immediately. I think Jess will agree. Jess, coming from startup, a founder herself, she will agree with me.
We
She runs
run
in
like
one.
the
It's
wind.
not you're crawling or walking. You jump and take that leap of faith, right? Very interesting discussion, and I would love to listen to fellow audience in Clubhouse, even in YouTube. Your views. Feel free to again press that palm button and request to speak up. We will give the floor to you. But before we do that, however, we will take a 2 minutes technical break at Clubhouse. And while we are at it, we shall play a short video promo of GMP USA Cohort 1 participant in our YouTube live streaming. And for the first video, it will be from Plant OS, a startup. Plant OS is a digital precision agriculture company that aims to empower farmers of the future. And to those watching this session in PPV YouTube live streaming, enjoy the show, guys. Unfortunately, for fellow Clubhouse participants, okay, welcome back. The video is done. However, our fellow panelists is not back. I can see Karsin, Abami is there. Where is Jess and Encik Naim? Give it a couple of seconds. And here we go. Welcome back, everybody. And again, thank you for those who have just joined us in the Clubhouse and who has been there since 15 p.m. earlier. We are at Pixel Play Ventures weekly Clubhouse session, and the topic for tonight is startup struggles and how do we grow faster. Together with us, we have Encik Naim from MATRADE, Karsin from Magic, as well as Jasrina from PurelyB, fellow startups, highlighting their views on this particular interesting topic. And a reminder to our listeners in Clubhouse, please do not be shy. Should you have any remarks to share, questions, or you would like to share your own experience, just press on the palm icon at the bottom of your screen. Our moderators will then put you up as a speaker. And those watching our YouTube live stream, feel free to drop your remarks and questions in the comment section. We will pick them up accordingly. And indeed, we have Jessica Hugh who would like to speak. And I have given you the floor, Jessica. Hi, Jessica.
Hello.
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 Hi, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hi,
Farah,
Samuel.
Jasmine, Francine, and Naim. I'm not sure if you can hear my voice. It should be fine. Yeah,
Loud and clear.
Jessica here. Yeah, I just would like to chime in a bit and probably pick your brains because we have a lot of experts here. So, just a little bit of context. I'm currently running a corporate services agency which, aims to bridge resources gaps in the micro, small businesses and early stage startup. I've been testing out, like a trial and error for the past 3 to 4 months. And, like based on my observation, we have many micro and small businesses or even early stage startups are actually struggling to expand, mainly, number one, because many that have like entrepreneurial mindset, it's getting younger and younger, the entrepreneurs, but they really actually lack leadership or relevant skills or knowledge, like for example management or marketing or even finance. And secondly is lack human resources because typically they don't have huge budget and human labor costs are really high, and like talent acquisition is expensive nowadays. So I personally think that the gap is in the nurturing part, especially on the for Malaysia, on the education, entrepreneur mindset, and to get the right network, which is really foundational. That's something that we lack. Also, I find out we lack like a rather systematic and a more affordable business support services for small businesses, and especially those fall through the cracks, because I know that a lot of all these small businesses, they may not like registered, so they are not registered on CCRIS, and also that's why a lot of them, they are not entitled to get loans and all. And all those business support services, the solutions in the market are actually for bigger corporates. I'm not sure if I'm 100% right, but also would love to hear from you guys, and perhaps to also understand a little bit more about the MSME, other than fundings, what other things that the associations or probably the government to bridge the knowledge gaps for MSME, because I know that for startups, we have Magic and other private venture cap or incubators and accelerator been doing that for quite some time, but I'm not really know like what about MSME.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you
that's
so
my
much,
question.
Jessica.
Thank
So if I
you.
were to rephrase your question in terms of you think that there is a lack of nurturing for micro SMEs. You meant MSMEs, right? Micro SMEs.
Yes,
Am I right?
micro and small, specifically. Yep.
Okay. So lack of nurturing in terms of education, in terms of human resource planning, etc. The very fundamental of running a business. I guess this goes to either Karsin or Encik Naim. Karsin, you might want to take this up first. Thanks,
Yeah,
Jessica.
can. So Jessica, thanks for the question. For Magic, yeah, so the definition of startups and MSME here, I am not too clear on the definition that you're referring to. I would assume that MSME, that in your point of view, is more traditional businesses, right?
Yes, for startup, it's more like a tech. It's just like what Jasrina is doing. It's just that in smaller
Mm.
scale, probably early stage. Yeah.
Yeah, so that it's naturally a group of audience. It's not actually um, under our umbrella. It could be under other agency like SME Corp. SME Corp is one of them. MSME. Yeah, most probably SME Corp would be the right agency to address this question. So most probably maybe Encik Naim would like to comment on this as well.
Well, Encik Naim, any thoughts from you for micro SMEs? Encik Naim, you are muted in Clubhouse. Can you unmute your
All right.
Clubhouse?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Cik Shahrul, for the question. Thank you, Ms. Jessica. Basically, if you're looking for specific topic on competencies that a startup or even SME require, then definitely you have to look at these specific topics handled by different government agencies. Of course, for MATRADE, since we are an export promotion agency, so the topics of our trainings to Malaysian companies would cover areas such as market opportunities or business opportunities, or maybe market entry strategies for you to enter, let's say, a particular market like Russia or maybe Central Asia. So these are specific topics that are normally trainings done by MATRADE. But if the topic that you are looking for more on, let's say, business management, or maybe, I don't know, financial management of or startup company, or maybe or SME company, then maybe you can learn or you can get this kind of training on this kind of topic from other agencies such as SME Corp or maybe Mara, or maybe you can get from, I don't know, maybe um, MIM, Marketing Institute of Malaysia, so that you can learn this, of course, some of these trainings um, are not necessarily conducted by government agencies. You can learn this from, I don't know, maybe industry association. I don't know if you are, let's say, you are involved in ICT business, for example. Maybe association like PCOM may organize specific training for ICT companies to learn about, and then maybe this may include areas of competencies that you are looking for.
Yeah, but having said that, Jessica, for Magic point of view, so I hear some echo. Sorry. So in
Nice.
Magic point of view, we are actually not restricting MSME to participate into our program as well. We are very welcome to get them on board. So most probably we can turn them into one of startup by changing their business model, right? In Magic, we although there's very specific definition that we were trying to write down to describe what is MSME as well as startups. However, we try not to make it too rigid. So yeah, we do have program that will welcome the MSME to participate as well. Yeah, I hope we answer your question.
Thanks, Kasin, and thanks, Naim, for the tips. I think that's my question comes from, because I'm just curious to see, like, because I think MSME has totally different agency, because I'm more familiar with like Magic. In fact, I actually was on quite a few of the Magic platform, like BBA and all, and actually, Kasin, you actually helped me
Sure.
to answer some of my questions as well earlier.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
thanks a lot for that.
No
So
problem.
I'm just curious about, like, how come, there's like discrepancies in terms of delivering all these kind of educational things. Yeah. So no worries. I'll just have a look again. So probably maybe next time you guys will be able to invite someone from the SME association, or someone from the MSME, the traditional business side. So I would love to hear more from you guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jessica, for the question. And I believe Encik Naim earlier has mentioned a couple of relevant agencies that is taking care of micro SMEs. It was a bit dim anyhow, a bit here and there. I personally couldn't actually catch up, Encik Naim, the list of agencies, respective agencies that you mentioned, but there were a couple that you mentioned, noticeable a few ones. But never mind, perhaps it can be further discussed in the next session. We also have Nick, one of our cohort member, GMP USA. Nick is online. Hi Nick, you wanted to ask a question or you wanted to share something? Go ahead.
Hi everyone.
Hi everyone. Nick from MoveB, yeah, by the way.
Nick from MoveB here. We are doing the peer-to-peer car sharing marketplace. Thanks for invitations. I think I've been invited by Bron. I think it's a very great discussion tonight. I just would like to ask one question that basically having in my mind right now. Like a startup is designed to grow fast, right? And I think if the company is not growing fast, I think we can't really consider that as a startup, right? Because it is a clear differentiation between the like a normal company and a startup, like a Google's and maybe like any other barbershop or maybe restaurants, because these are differentiation that I think we need to make very clear between startup and other company, right? And running a startup is very hard, like everyone know. The question is right now that I have in my mind, talking about the expand and to other countries and other region. If you see like the other successful company like Airbnb or maybe like Uber, uh, when they started, what actually like what are the secret recipe that they have in order to expand very fast to other countries, to other region, or maybe continents, right? um, and what are the secret recipe of this company like Aerodyne, for instance, for them to like have services in I think more than 24 countries. So what's stopping people like other startup like to grow fast? That would be my question. Maybe I can ask maybe from AJ or maybe from MATRADE, maybe from PPB as well. Yeah, Charo.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much. So what's stopping startups to go faster? Very interesting question. Thank you, Nick. Abame, perhaps from PPD, you have seen many startups. What do you think in terms of, I do have a couple of things in mind, but I would let you do the deliberation.
Oh, this is a personal view. I think the biggest challenge is attitude to me. Yeah? I may be wrong here. Somebody might correct me. But key is attitude, and it's about how fast you want to run. All right. And one of the things I believe we are trying to get startups to do is to wake up every morning and ask, how can I run faster today? All right. So it's creating that attitude that helps. But once you are into looking for ways of growing faster, then I think it's much easier. It's much easier to get things going. But at the same time, getting the resource, not resource, the linkages to run faster is also as important. Okay, you might have the urge to do everything faster, but you do not have the links. You do not have the network. You do not have the know-who in order to do that. Then I think it's going to be a bigger challenge, right? If I can just give an example, I do know of one company that started out doing something, is doing well. It's not that they're not growing; they're growing, but the founder actually asks the same question: what else can I do? A lot of people say, well, pivot, right? But pivoting has a bit of a different connotation. Usually it's meant that the company is having problem, then you pivot. But if you're looking at it from a diversification point of view, and say that's pivoting, then you're looking at, you already have a base product, you have a base service, then and one of those mornings you get up, what else can I do? And you can actually, this company actually found a service within what they were doing, right? I'm not able to mention the company here tonight, but what I'm saying is they found products that could actually be part of something that they were was made available because of what they were doing already, and they found new ways of doing things, and they started running even faster. I don't know whether it makes sense. You tell me if you can understand what I'm saying.
Abami, you are right. Pivoting is one of the key, yes, and it's quite normal in the startup ecosystem, but it can be a bit tricky and a bit intimidating by agencies such as MATRADE, who normally, again, the gap is still there in terms of understanding and setting expectation. They don't need, it's a norm in startup, but it's not a norm in traditional businesses. I
Yes,
mean,
and
yeah, it's a
yeah,
gap
I
that
agree. I
right?
agree. And if you were to talk to bankers, and I don't know about VCs, certainly not this VC, some of them get worried because then they were saying, "Hey, where's your focus?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of banks or lenders are worried if you are having too many focal points, you might lose your way. So, to a certain extent, that is true. But if you already have established the product, say for example, you've already established it's running well, right? And then you find something else to do within the service that you're providing for that product, and you found it and you run with that as well. I don't think, I think you can keep your focus on the two products or services that you're doing. So yeah, I agree with you. You have to be careful as well.
Thank you for your train of thoughts, Abami. I mean, I personally have my comment and also answer my own personal response to Nick's question. I believe Jasrina would be able to relate to my answer. Nick, to me personally, the number one mistake that all founders make is that they think if I build it, they will come. Generally speaking, this is false. The best sites on the web are probably undiscovered, but we have a bias. We only hear about the successful websites. Same goes for startups. We only hear about the successful ones. Those has been in the papers. Those has been highlighted. Who has gotten a lot of optics. But there are probably many good ones out there that remain undiscovered. And from what I can see at incubators, accelerators, getting initial users or sales is by far the hardest part of a startup. So I personally would recommend getting experience selling something before you jump in. Why I was saying, Jess would relate, because I guess Jasrina, you did mention earlier and share with us many, many times that you are selling a product, and it's not easy to and I believe it was the hardest part to sell the Pegaga product that you are championing, right?
Um, yeah, so for us, what was really hard was to monetize when the biggest vision was to help improve people's health. And we had an educational platform, and we had very high standards of what was healthy, like natural, no processed, no chemicals, no toxic ingredients, and so on. So even in terms of branded content, because we were an educational platform, we had to turn down brands like Nestle and L'Oreal who were saying, name your price. They wanted to do partnerships with us. And we said no, because their products didn't meet our guidelines and it went against our integrity and the values of a brand. And we built such a strong following because of that. So it's sort of like, how do we retain our values while still monetizing in a way that we can be a sustainable business? So we can't just be an educational platform. We can't just be a marketplace even, because marketplace is very low margins and we want to be a sustainable business. So it took us a while to find the sweet spot, which ended up becoming Pegaga. So when we did find Pegaga by it was all just, it fell into place with the medical scientists and traditional herbalists. It happened so fast and it was so easy to sorry. It was so easy to monetize. And that's what I found. Like when you find that right sweet spot, it shouldn't be so hard. It should actually come very naturally in how the customers want it and they're willing to pay for it and high repeat customers. But to get to that part is difficult. It's a discovery stage of learning along the way. But every single step, every single failure, as you might see it, is not a failure. It actually gets you even closer to it and makes you an even stronger business. So that's, yeah. So for us, I feel that what sets apart, let's say like your Airbnb and so on, I do agree with Amer saying that there's definitely a mindset and attitude. Like you cannot give up in that sense. You have to persevere. At the same time, you have to think what is not going right and get over ego and all those things of what you might be holding on to. But I wanted to build this kind of business. I wanted to build this kind of monetization channel, and it doesn't quite work. And so you have to look past that and see what are the customers trying to tell us. What is it that we're not doing right? And then try and figure it out. But the other part, however, I think that a very strong part of the Airbnb success story is that they were trying a lot of things and they didn't get as much traffic. Like there were little wins, but not enough. They didn't get as much traffic. Their team was demoralized. Their growth stagnated. They were running out of money. And then at the last minute, a miracle happened, which is Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator, believed in them and accepted them into their class. I can't remember how long ago, 2008, 2009. And then they got funding of 20,000 and the backing of Y Combinator and the teachings of Y Combinator, which opened up the doors after that, where they changed their name to Airbnb. And then they got funding of 600,000 from Sequoia Capital and so on, because they, of course, know only really good startups come out of Y Combinator. So I feel like they also had an advantage. They had a great idea, but they were also trying to figure it out, like that sweet spot. Like how do we hit that trajectory? And they had the help Y Combinator to get there. So I do think it is a combination of things. Like attitude is one of them, but also having the backing from the right people, the support from the right people, and having the right learnings and programs or whatnot to help you get there is it's very essential too.
And also, I mean, you used a very good keyword earlier, being full of perseverance, being persevere. You know,
Yeah.
in the startup world, it is normal. This might sound alien to Encik Naim and the likes of the government agencies in Malaysia. A startup will try to do things and have faith in what they want to do. They fail, which is normal. They will try to redo it again. I saw a cat in front of Jasrina.
Sorry.
Sorry, guys, in Clubhouse, you are not able to view this, but in the YouTube live stream, Jasrina's cat, I think he or she is
Sorry.
interested to say something.
He's very attention seeking right now.
Never mind, I'm sorry. You can just catch up
There's a
in the future.
Bengal. Jess, is there a Bengal?
No,
Customer.
no, no, no,
No,
no.
it's not.
I don't
Okay.
know what breed he is.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Adopted. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys
Narul,
can
may
just
I
catch up in
respond
our live stream.
to question asked by
Sorry,
Sorry?
yes, Naim. Yeah, I was saying
yeah, may I respond to the question asked by
Nick, by Nick
Nick
earlier.
from Movie? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yes, I could agree with what has been said by Cik Ami earlier that, of course, startups or even entrepreneurs of any types of companies, need to have right mindset or right attitude. I think uh, I totally agree with that. But I think what is stopping a startup from progressing fast? I think it's resources. Um, uh, the resources could be in a form of time or team, and then startup cannot do things alone. They have good idea, but to expand an idea, you need a team. They cannot do things a good idea and develop a good idea alone. All along cannot. There's no way. That's one. Secondly, to us, Matrade, how we see this, even though you are just a startup now, you know, more importantly to you is to be able to sustain your business. You know, I mean, yes, maybe you have a good idea, a great idea. You have a good team now to develop the great idea that you have. Then let's say by the time you manage to commercialize the idea, and then yeah, you may leave to someone else and and try to develop another new idea, you know, and that could happen to a startup, but that's not how we see it. You know, we have seen, for example, maybe I think everybody knows that um, Grab, for example, you know, the journey that Grab has gone through. You know, Grab, the I would say the inventor, the owner of the Grab idea is a Malaysian. You know, so but luckily, yes, now they are big now. I mean, they have been, I would say, progressing well. But luckily, you know, Grab is still Malaysian owned, and then they don't sell that Grab to anyone else because, of course, he's Malaysian. so, so the owner is Malaysian. That's what I mean. I mean, to a smart trade or government agency, yes, we want to help startup companies to develop their ideas. But at the same time, we also want them to be able to sustain that idea and compete well in the international market. You know, I mean, yes. So we want to have I would say this ecosystem, so-called creation of new ideas by startups. You know, so yes, what has been stopping startups from progressing fast? Definitely, it's related to resources that startup has, and resources again, the time and the team. You cannot do things alone, and then you should have an ability to sustain and develop the idea, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Encik Naim, for the you know, very much in-depth explanation. I hope it answers next question earlier. All right. Before we move on, and thank you who have just joined us in Clubhouse again, and we are at Pixel Ventures weekly Clubhouse session. The topic for tonight is startup struggles and how do we grow faster. Together with us, we have Encik Naim from MATRADE, Karsin from Magic, Jasrina from PurelyB, a startup, and our startup fellow friends in Clubhouse. This particular session tonight, highlighting their views on this interesting topic. I would move my attention to Karsin. Karsin, in the first part of the session earlier tonight, you did mention that in Magic, you noticed a failure rate of 97%. Correct me if I'm wrong, 97%, was it? That you mentioned earlier?
Yeah,
Startup.
different country would have different statistic lah. It's a range between 93 to 97,
Okay.
even some 99 as well. Yeah.
Which is considered extremely high, and
Yeah.
you know, it's a very scary number to, you know, to tell people.
It
uh
is.
yeah, it is. And you know, why do most startups fail? If you Google this today, now, you know, the answer you will get, most of it will say insufficient financial resources. Another important reason for the failure of startups is the lack of capital resources,
Yes.
especially in the growth phase. You know, follow-up financing is often lacking. uh, you are in the best position to further deliberate on this, because in fact you were the one who mentioned 97. My percentage was lower. It is interesting to learn, you know, what are your views on this.
Yeah, I totally agree. The 97 actually failed within the first 3 years of starting the business. So naturally, there will be fall under ideation and validation stage. You are also right to say that the funding support in the ecosystem, it's extremely weak at the very early stage. Offering out the seed and pre-seed. I'm sure as a VC, you know the reason why, because all the VCs are looking for ROI, and because this very early stage startup is having too high failure rate, naturally they prefer to be investing in scale up and proven businesses. So that part is more guarantee in terms of return from VC point of view. Hence, the financial support in the very early stage has been complemented by the government agency like Cradle, giving up grant, right? But it's still not enough. So we Magic is actually aware of the gap here at the very early stage in terms of funding. We are trying to patch that up with different methodology. What we found out is we aware that in the Western country and also even Singapore, there are a model called venture building, where it is a new model. It's a company that is a startup that is helping to create startups. It's a startup that creates startup. So this startup actually take higher equity in very early stage startups, and then with that they will be giving resources like mentorship, financial support, all sorts lah. So most probably they have a dedicated marketing team to help all these individual ideas to grow to a certain stage. So that is the model that is currently still very infancy in Malaysia that I'm seeing. But however, moving forward, when I just want to let the audience in this room know, Magic actually recently got merged into Technology Park Malaysia. So the new name is called Meranti. In Meranti, we will have certain initiative to help patch this gap. So that is something we are still trying to understand as well as to come up with. But the venture building could be one of the things that would be filling the gap at the current moment.
So apart
Maybe.
apart from Cradle Fund, Krasin, apart from Cradle Fund that obviously support ideation stage startup, you are saying highly likely in future Meranti will look at bridging this gap as well.
Yes, yes, yes. So in Meranti, there is a conversation that Meranti will need to become a profit generating organization rather than uh, funded organization. That means we would have to generate our own revenue in the future. Hence, one of the idea or suggestion was that Meranti will be acting as a VC in the role of general partners um, to to identify early stage startups and invest into them. At the same time, also providing the necessary resources to help them grow to certain maturity before we exit to people like you guys. So that's one of the area we are also looking at in Meranti.
Thank you so much for this. This is news to us, and yeah, hopefully we will look at this interesting news being positioned in mainstream media. So this is pretty much an exciting thing to look forward to, especially by
Sure.
those starting at ideation level. Encik Naim, do you know of any relevant government agency, if not MATRADE, other agencies that would support ideation stage startup in terms of funding? Are you muted in Club? Yes, you are muted in Clubhouse. Encik Naim, can you unmute, please? Okay.
Okay. For
For
startups,
startups,
because
because
they are involved mostly in, I would say, ICT related sector, because normally they use ICT to develop solutions
sorry, you are
either
referring
for
to
businesses.
which agency again, Encik Naim?
No, I'm trying to relate to startups.
Oh, okay.
If we're talking about startups, definitely um, for ideation stage, I'm not sure whether Magic has a program, but definitely Magic is mandated to look after startups development. And then I believe they in their programs that they have, uh, it may include ideation stage, I believe. But for other segments or other sectors, um, I mean, outside of ICT, I basically for the ideation stage, Then basically, if we talk about product development, they can go to CRIM, because CRIM helps companies in product development. They could provide advice, and even they do provide some grants to Malaysian companies to develop products. So let's say they have an idea to develop a product. So at the stage of product development, CRIM can be one agency that they can refer to get this advice. But of course, startups, if they are involved in so-called ICT, and then I think they are developing solutions using ICT, for example. Definitely, Magic is the right agency that they can
And
get
inshallah,
advice.
in
Yeah.
future, Meranti, yeah, Magic. I mean, it's Cradle, then we have Meranti. So look forward for it. Thank you, Encik Naim. We do have someone in Clubhouse who raised their hand, Hashir. And I have granted you access. Hashir, you have a
Oh,
question to
hi
ask?
everybody.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello, yes, go ahead.
I believe this is a Malaysian club room.
It is, it is.
Oh, great. I don't know. I mean, this is so crazy. I was recently in a Nigerian clubhouse room, and now I'm in a Malaysian clubhouse room. I'm from India, by the way, and I am working with a startup,
Mm-hmm.
and in blockchain space. The thing here in blockchain space is that you get paid in the blockchain currency. I mean, whatever project you're working on, you get paid in that. And I recently joined a startup, and I wanted to know how is it that one can secure uh, his career or his job in the startup when you are not being paid, because it's very unorganized in a way. What could be
Mm-hmm.
the possible things that you could do?
Is that your only question, Hashir?
Yeah, I hope. Yeah, I hope that's
All
the
right.
only question.
Thank you so much. And also thank you for dropping by in our Clubhouse session.
Uh-huh.
Very nice to have, someone non-Malaysian following us. Thank you,
Hmm.
Hashir.
Yeah, maybe I can
Yeah,
answer this question.
yeah,
Boleh.
sure, sure, please.
I can go ahead.
Okay, so Harsha, you are Indian, right? So it's your startup planning to run the business in Malaysia?
Sorry.
Your startup,
I don't-
where's the
Well,
base
here's the
of
thing:
your startup?
the startup is multinational already. I mean, we have guys working for us from Tanzania, from Mexico, from US, from Europe, from everywhere. I mean, it's
Right.
not a
Hmm.
legal entity anywhere. I mean, we haven't registered that. I mean, we have in Panama, but we don't have anything to do with Panama. It's just that the company has been registered in Panama.
But
Okay.
your question earlier was how do you sustain even without being paid, right? We don't really
Yeah,
understand how startup can
yeah.
survive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Thank you, Aishir Kasim. Perhaps you want to answer that, and I believe after that, Jasrina would want to share, based on your experience, Jess. The hardship of how to run your own startup, how you actually bring your own pocket initially, so that this can be a very much sharing session with Hashir. Yeah, Kasim, go ahead. Kasim, you are muted, Kasim.
So I'm assuming that you are saying that you want to come into Malaysia and run the business, right?
No, not necessarily. That's not what I was
Not
saying.
really. I think it was in general. The question was in general.
I
He
see.
doesn't really grasp the idea of running a startup without getting a regular salary, like a regular 9 to 5 job.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
as a founder,
I could
normally
not put
that's
it
what
any
we
better. Great. Thanks, guy.
I see. So for myself, if you ask my experience, well, I'm actually also an entrepreneur myself. I do have startups. Um, I have a grocery business. Started with e-commerce, and then now we are going to physical. Currently, started in 2016. Currently, we have approximately 44 store around Klang Valley. So I mean, me as one of the co-founder actually started with some of the founders back in 2016. My advice to you is please have a full-time job and don't quit so soon before jumping 100% into your startup. it most of the time you will have a lot of I mean, you are actually in a rush to get something done, right? So at the rushing time, you are actually kind of limiting yourself. The so no in my point of view is that it is better that you start with having a full-time job. Once it comes to a certain stage, then you actually quit the full-time job and go back to your startup and work on it. That's my point of view lah. Because
Don't forget
in startup
the,
point of view, you
and
don't
don't
really
forget
get
the
a lot of
failure rate is
pay.
97%, yeah, Kasin, right? Failure rate
Yes,
in Malaysia,
correct.
97%,
Yes.
very alarming. So yeah, not to intimidate you, but you really need to reassess, before you take that leap of faith running a startup and leave your day-to-day job. Jasrina shared her beautiful story of how she left her day-to-day job from having a regular income every month, jumping into a startup, and she has taken that leap of faith. So you might want to share a little bit, Jasrina,
Sure.
and give some motivation to Hashir.
I mean, I didn't jump in straight away. When I had the idea and I came up with the whole 3 or 5 years business plan of, how the business would evolve if this takes off in the next few months, and I pulled together a team of which I believe we helped fulfill each other's weaknesses, and what did I need in the company for this to be a success that I myself couldn't do, and that was bringing health experts and whatnot on board, and I was the digital specialist. But when we launched it, we all launched it with still maintaining our full-time jobs, because we needed real proof that this was something consumers really wanted, and it wasn't just what we think they want. And when we saw that traction and we saw the response beyond what we even expected, it then made no sense for us to continue being at a full-time job. So two of us actually quit our full-time jobs to run PurelyB. But when doing that, I already had the idea of, we know we're not going to monetize yet. We actually made an intent of not monetizing for 1 year. That was in my 5-year business plan. It was first year, do not monetize, because we want to build a trusted health and wellness brand that people really can build a strong connection with. And if you're trying to sell them something, you already disintegrate that. So you need to be all about, I want to help you, I want to guide you, I want to educate, and so on, and not try to sell them anything yet. And only a year later, when you really establish your brand and that trust, then you can start monetizing. So what do we do in that first year if we're not able to monetize? How are we going? We're not getting salaries. How are we going to pay bills? One of them is a mother, and she's the breadwinner in the family. So it was already a calculated risk in that sense, because what is our strength? What's our forte? And it was digital marketing. She was in digital media. I was head of digital and Astro. So we then created a little side company that was a digital marketing consultancy. And because we had created quite a good contacts and good network in that industry, there were already brands that were turning to us that they wanted our help, for digital marketing expansion and all those things. So I was concurrently, after I quit my job, we were running the side business whilst running PurelyB. So it's really, yes, you get no sleep. It is really like, just like a full force, but it's so worthwhile because the money that we got from these brands and clients, we were lucky. We managed to get one client that we made a big enough amount that could pay our salaries for a year. And well, we didn't actually need that year because we managed to get seed funding 6 months later, but we were prepared of what if we don't. We had that, and not we'll get more clients. If we didn't get that one big client, we would have just maintained get more clients and just juggle the two, so that we never have the worry about how we're going to pay our bills. Because if you had that worry in your head, you're never going to be able to focus on your business, because you're just going to be worried about the money, and then you would actually go down the wrong path of monetizing the wrong way just to get money to survive, rather than this is really what will make this business a long-term success and fulfill the needs of our customers. So that's what we did, and it'll be different for everyone.
Thank you, Jasrina, for sharing. Hashir, my personal train of thoughts, if you want to jump into startup, get yourself familiar with the startup community, start to talk with founders, understand their failures, their success stories, especially their failures, their pain points, so you won't make the same mistakes. Normally, founders will be more than happy to share their failures with you, and see you do better. That's number one. Number two, unless you are really born, in a single in a silver spoon, I mean, forget about burning your own pocket and starting your own startup and having to worry about paying salary for others. If you are born in a silver spoon, go ahead by all means. You can burn 3 million in a year, go ahead. I don't mind even to work for your startup, for example. But I was just joking anyhow. Thank you, Harshit, for the question. All right, we have a couple of minutes before 11, but I would really need to touch the view of Encik Naim coming from MATRADE. This is quite not really tricky, but it is applicable in terms of product and services being championed by startup. Encik Naim, should we open the Pandora box, asking startups what are their struggles, we will definitely get a list of 10,001 whining remarks from the startup community. But however, taking realistic into context, common startup problems include what? Poor planning, poor leadership, failure to differentiate a product or service from others that are already available, ignoring the needs of customers, and not learning from failures. Five. Out of these five problems that I personally have pointed out, let's just focus on one, which is failure to differentiate a product or service from others that are already available. I'm very sure, being a MATRADE, with your vast experience, you've seen a lot of cases, especially in the traditional businesses, and perhaps you might want to share, a point or two on this particular aspect.
Right.
Are you muted again, Chennai? Yes, I'm
Uh,
yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Shahrul, for the question. Yeah, definitely. Differentiating value is very important. Make yourself different from others will make will help you stand out from your competitors. But what startups need to do to differentiate themselves? Definitely, again, what they need to do, they have to do a lot of due diligence, and then basically this doing due diligence shouldn't just be done by a startup company, any types of companies before they venture abroad. Definitely, they have to do due diligence, and I believe experience encountered by Jasrina, for example, she has been doing a lot of due diligence, to make sure that her product stands out from her rivals or competitors. So I think the main point that they need to do first is they have to do due diligence. They have to do their homework. A startup company, I mean, the same as other companies, whenever they want to launch their idea or develop their idea, definitely they have to do their homework. They have to do their due diligence. What more if they want to get into the international markets, because it involves a lot of risk. And then we are talking about unfamiliar waters, you know. So definitely they have to prepare themselves and do a lot of due diligence. So MATRADE can help in this, because again, as I mentioned earlier, um, one thing that MATRADE can provide to you, basically, we can share market intelligence, so that being a startup, you need not go through the leaps and bounds, and then you need not go through a long journey. You can shorten your learning curve, so that you are able to get ready as fast as you could, as what Nick asked earlier, so being a startup, you want to do things fast, and then you want to progress fast. But of course, again, you have to do due diligence.
Thank you, Chennai. Due diligence is
I think,
important. Yes,
yeah,
noted. Last one. You know,
yeah,
how actually MATRADE, before I ask that question, we had Hashir earlier. He left, but nevertheless, this is being recorded and being streamed live in YouTube. It will be recorded. People will just view this 2 hour content again and again. So we listened to a foreigner, who asked question. But coming as being a Malaysian agency, how would you, MATRADE, sell Malaysian startups whenever being asked by foreigners?
All right. Interesting question. What we do from our experience, definitely, again, it's all about narrative.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though a startup company, you are able to develop a good narrative about your product, about your company, about your team, the idea that you have, then definitely with that good narrative, then we are able to sell you overseas. That could be, we can use that good narrative to attract attractions or get tractions from foreign people or foreign buyers, for example, or even from your potential investors. We talk about startups, so definitely creating a good narrative or a good profile is a skill. And then, unfortunately, this skill is still lacking, not only to startups, what more to, I would say, established companies, So, what we do, let's say we have your profile.
Mm-hmm.
So with your profile, I mean, then definitely we promote your profile to the foreign parties, And of course, we do ask you to highlight your capabilities, your so-called differentiating values that you have in your product, because that will be the selling points for us. I mean, our trade commissioners or even market officers stationed overseas, to help market or promote your products. Because startups, they again, you don't have that outreach, but MATRADE does have that outreach and that capability. So we can represent you anytime to promote your narrative or promote your profile to the foreign parties. That's what we
Fellow
do. That's why
startups,
we
understand
encourage.
MATRADE
That's
can
why
promote
we urge we
anytime,
urge
anytime.
Malaysian companies to register with us so that we can have your profile handy with us. So anytime that we receive inquiries from the foreign parties, you can always check our database and introduce your profile to the foreign companies. That's what we do. We
Actually,
have been doing it. So I think in terms of what we do next after we introduce your
Mm-hmm.
profile or your narrative to the foreign parties, we also can do business matching for you, And then nowadays we can easily conduct business meetings virtually through our e-Bizmatch platform. And then we have been doing thousands of e-Bizmatch sessions since last year until today. So this is the platform that I believe even a startup company has to grab and then has to leverage on the facility that we have.
actually, I was trying to sell to the startup just now, Hashir, right? I was trying to sell Malaysia to him because we do have another program called My Startup Hub. Because if you are coming in overseas, you are not able to get much benefit from Malaysia because most of our grant, our incentives only offer to the locals. So they have to actually soft land into Malaysia first with a registered entity. Then we can only help them to path into gaining the same benefit as like a local. So yeah, looks like he is not coming into Malaysia. So yeah, that's how we actually in Magic's perspective we sell Malaysia to the foreign startups.
This is definitely good news and positive feedback from agencies such as Magic and MATRADE. And yeah, we look forward for your support. I think Jasrina and the rest of the friends here who are running their own business, their own startup founders will be more than happy to hear what you have mentioned earlier, Encik Naim. That you guys are willing to promote our local startups to foreigners. Let it be in Malaysia, foreigners coming into Malaysia, or even the outbound, championing Malaysian startups and promoting them to the global market. Pretty much, very much interesting, very helpful, and definitely it will help to grow at the very least, our Malaysian startups grow faster, inshallah. We are at 11:06. Full blown 2 hours. We are done. I had a good time chatting with you guys. Thank you so much, Encik Naim, for your time Saturday evening talking to us in Clubhouse. Thank you, Karsin from Magic, Abami, as well as Jasrina. It's not again to reiterate accordingly, Jeshna is not representing startups, but it's good to actually listen to a founder herself, you know, on the pain points, on the struggle that she had, so others can share, and it was discussed accordingly. We hear what were your pain points, and also it will be a good lesson learned for others, and see how we can further champion and support Malaysian startups locally and attract more FDIs into the country by attracting foreign startups to set up their or even expand their businesses into Malaysia, right? So in the spirit of eventually expanding or creating or developing the startup community in Malaysia, the whole ecosystem altogether. Uh, Again, thank you so much for your participation. Jenaim from MATRADE, Kasim from Magic, Jasrina from PurelyB. Nice talking to you guys. Abami from PPV, my fellow partner, thank you so much. I will pass this session to Yasin to close it. And before we end the live streaming session in YouTube, we will play the second video from the for the a cohort of GMP USA cohort 1 as well, and this time it will be from the company called CodeMax. So CodeMax, what they do is indeed hold on, I need to get this right. Yes, CodeMax provides a cloud-based solution to manage the operation of your food production company. So before the actual YouTube channel, YouTube streaming live video ends, CodeMax video will be played and the live streaming will end as it is. Thank you so much again, guys, for your time. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yasin, all to you.
Thank you very much.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you.
Thank you as well to all of our guests, Kasin, Jenaim, Yasrina, and Abang Amir. And thank you to all those who have tuned in to our Clubhouse and YouTube channel. This live stream is available in Pixel Play Ventures YouTube channel for anyone to recap the session. Do share with your friends. Please do subscribe to our Pixel Play Ventures YouTube channel. As for our next session, we will continue with Entrepreneurship Founder Stories series featuring I Love Quran and the Noor Startups. Same time, same place, 20th November, 9 p.m. on Clubhouse, Pixel Play Ventures YouTube. For those watching our live stream, we will end with a company video from one of our cohort startups, CodeMax. Thank you once again and see you next week.
Thank you, guys. Have a good weekend.
In Clubhouse?
Rambo?
Oh, dia tengah dengar different audio.
Okay.
I pergi toilet jap ya.
Alright.